Welcome to Bloom Today. We have a truly addictive show for you. We're going to be talking about having a need to fill a need.
Hi, I'm Paula Wallace, president of Bloom in the Dark, and this is
Ginny Priz, the single-handed serenity coach. Welcome to Bloom Today, where we talk about internal and external brokenness and how you can heal,
so that you can use the fertilizer of your past to bloom today. Hey everyone, welcome. Today, obviously, we're talking about I have a need to fill a need. And I've been very needy in my past. What about you, Ginny?
Absolutely. There's always that place that I wanted to fill. I wanted something to satisfy, to make some kind of peace. I couldn't really find it where I wanted to find it, though, in the first place. I searched very worldly places. And that was so much fun, let me tell you. And by so much fun, I mean absolutely terrifying and just torturous. Yeah.
It set you up for some bad stuff, didn't it?
Oh gosh, yeah. I didn't know where I was looking for my peace, but I thought I would find it surely somewhere with, I don't know, alcohol, cigarettes, men. Why not? Isn't that what we're all trying to use? Isn't that what we're all trying to use?
Well, it's the temptation to go looking for things, and you almost became a raging alcoholic because you were almost
raped.
Oh,
yeah, that was the first part of that story. The need for peace and the need to calm myself, get back to some kind of stability internally in how I was feeling. Actually, what I didn't recognize at the time, but there was a huge shift internally for me after I experienced an attempted rape. And I was experienced a lot of panic attacks afterwards, and I thought I was overreacting. I thought it was just me. I thought I was the problem, even after all of that. And because nothing really happened, so of course nothing really happened. Mm-hmm. So I went looking for something, anything, and along the way became almost an alcoholic, except I really became an alcoholic. So,
but not stage 4 or the most extreme homeless under the bridge version.
Right. Well, that's what I told myself. I can't be an alcoholic because I don't live under a bridge. So clearly, I'm just fine. I've got a great job. I'm able to have relationships. I'm holding everything together. And so therefore, I can't really be an alcoholic. And what I learned when I went to DUI school after getting a DUI is that I was in the 3rd stage of alcoholism. So my brain chemistry hadn't really changed, but yet I was relying on alcohol to numb out the pain. And it had become not just something that I did occasionally, but it was a culture for me. And it was just my attempt to numb all of that pain and that fear that I had experienced from many things in my life, but most specifically was that traumatic event that happened.
Right. So I was actually raped. I had no claim to the almost, but the idea that it's still my problem, it's still my fault, and there were the other kinds of abuse that had happened starting when I was 2 and all of that we've talked about before. But I had a good claim because I chose acceptable addictions.
Acceptable
addictions. That meant that
your addictions were better than my addictions?
Yes, my addictions were way better than your addictions. It's so funny because we do quantify, like a workaholic is an acceptable addiction because they're a good provider. They're making good money. They work hard.
Right.
But it can still destroy their families.
Absolutely.
You look at somebody, in my case, I went from having a reading addiction where anything I had to do other than reading, escape, because obviously that was a great escape, living in a different world through books, because we didn't have television, so, had to be books. And I literally had a book with me all the time. So if I had 2 minutes waiting for something, I was reading. If I didn't have a book somewhere, I went into a panic because that meant I was going to have to be me, stuck with my own thoughts for this time frame in my thoughts had all this torment and pain and ugliness in it. And so whether it was a shopping addiction or a food addiction, all these different stages of addictions that weren't those horrible ones like alcohol and drugs. I had the proper acceptable addictions.
Proper addictions. Wow, what
proper
an oxymoron.
addictions. But that's how we lie to ourselves and rationalize. But when I got angry and lashed out at somebody because they interrupted me while I was reading.
Oh, how dare you.
But it was an addictive response
Right.
to a situation. And it's so funny when you take the good or bad or appropriate or wrong or glorified addictions like somebody who cleans all the time, you know, well, look, their house is spotless. But if it's an addiction that actually
Right.
controls them and interferes with family and relationships and all the ways that addictions pan out, it doesn't matter how, quote unquote, proper or good or bad the addiction is.
Yeah.
The destruction to our families, our relationships, our world, ourselves
Still
is
very
still
real.
there.
Still very real. And it doesn't start as an addiction. It doesn't just one day go from one thing to the next thing. It's a slow process. And we think, oh, this'll just get me through the next 5 minutes, 10 minutes, the next night, whatever that is, until I can go shopping again, whatever that looks like. And then but then over time, it's still not enough. It's still not enough, and it's still not enough, and it's still not enough. Because at the end of the day, the only thing that's going to be enough for us is God, is the relationship that we have with Him to fill that place of brokenness inside of us.
So you're saying that everyone can actually turn to God instead of to addictions, because addictions seem to meet certain needs temporarily, but God has the only true fix for those same needs. And a lot of times we are needing things that much due to loss or brokenness or abuse or trauma or
Sure.
difficult circumstances.
Well, for me, it was I needed to numb the pain. I needed to dull the pain. This place where I'm at is unacceptable. It's too much. I can't live here consistently. And I know that alcohol has been used as a great way to numb out from my family and my friends and all of the college students that I knew. So maybe that's a great way to go ahead and numb that out. And from an addiction side of things, addiction mindset, really, it was only temporary. That's why I needed to keep going back for more, keep going back for more, keep going back for more. It's only temporary. But if I'm turning to God, now when I stopped drinking, I needed to feel all of those emotions again and actually process through them. And that was really difficult. And it didn't heal overnight. I wasn't fully put back together and didn't have to feel those emotions anymore overnight. But through that process, God did heal me, and that was much more permanent.
So like it says in John 2:16, that for everything in the world, the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life comes not from the Father, but from the world. And when we go to the world to meet that need, it is such a short, small, temporary fix.
Very temporary.
But where God's answer may take a while, because it takes renewing your mind, it takes healing, it takes processing stuff, but then it becomes a long-term fix, long-term healing. It actually changes our lives, not just for a second or two, but it can
Right.
change our lives on a long-term, eternal
Level.
basis.
Absolutely.
So I did it to feel safe and in control.
The reading and the shopping and
the food and the whatever it was an area where I got to choose. And it might have been a very broken, dysfunctional choice, gaining 72 pounds in 6 months due to a food addiction because of a broken relationship.
That's a lot in a little bit of time, yeah.
Right, but I was controlling what I put in my mouth. And if I was rejected super, super skinny, then let's just see what happens when I do the opposite. And there was comfort in stuffing and putting something in my mouth and in filling the internal void physically, whether or not I knew how to fill that void emotionally, which is what I really needed, was help with that. But I learned I was really powerless when I started cramming food I didn't like. I didn't even like the taste of it.
Right.
And I couldn't stop myself from shoving my mouth full anyway. My stomach would hurt. I would still.
So where you felt in control, all of a sudden you're way out of control.
Yeah, it doesn't work too well.
That same thing that you used to stay in control is now gotten completely out of control, which of course only puts you in that spiral even further, right?
Right, but God's the only one in control.
Right. It's this illusion of safety that the world gives us, that these substances or these addictions give to us. But then with God, we know that, well, it's not necessarily that we're suddenly going to be in control when we believe in the Lord. More so, we have this rest in knowing that He's in control, and that ultimately we know where we're going. Ultimately, we know that we will be with Him forever in heaven, and we will never have to live without Him. But we do have to live with the idea that here on earth, for this short amount of time while we are here, we are pretty much powerless, but we just have to be resting in His hands. He still got us here, even though the chaos seems to be raging around us.
Right, and then there's the whole thing about escaping from circumstances. So y'all, the current temptation for that is Netflix.
Oh, yes, absolutely. I would love to just go ahead and escape from
binge watch something. It's funny because that's even a thing now. Like binging on Netflix is an acceptable addiction in culture and society right now. But it's the same thing where it's temporary, it's an illusion, and the minute the series ends or the show ends or the movie ends, you're sitting there having to face the pain and the reality of your life and all the stuff that comes from it. And it's such a misguided thing anytime we take anything to help us escape, because at the end of it, it's done nothing but waste time.
Exactly. And time we could have been spending processing and healing and bringing this to God and building a relationship with Him and understanding and resting that there is peace with Him in the middle of the storm that we're going through. We could have spent that time healing, but rather we decided I know I have spent a lot of time saying, hey, Netflix sounds really great. I've had a hard day. Let me just, and it can be that same kind of cycle again of trying to escape.
Do we have a coaching tool?
We absolutely do. I do want to share, though, Ecclesiastes 7:5. It is better to heed the rebuke of a wise person than listen to the song of fools. And that specifically, to me, is the Netflix, the books, the escape is the song of fools. It's that temptation to just ease into something, that seduction that is there, but it's never going to give us what we actually need.
Have a song?
We absolutely have a song, and this is something that I think is really speaks to the idea of faith and how God can come in no matter where we are in that addiction cycle, or no matter where we are anywhere in our life. It doesn't have to be necessarily in the midst of addiction, but just the healing power and the turnaround power that God has. Would you like to read that for us?
Oh, please, please, please. Cutlass has the song What Faith Can Do. And yeah, let me just read it. Everybody falls sometimes. Got to find the strength to rise from the ashes and make a new beginning. Anyone can feel the ache. You think it's more than you can take, but you are stronger. Stronger than you know. Don't give up now. The sun will soon be shining. You got to face the clouds to find that silver lining. I've seen dreams that move mountains, hope that doesn't ever end. Even when the sky is falling, I've seen miracles just happen. Silent prayers get answered. Broken hearts become brand new. That's what faith can do and has done. It doesn't matter what you've heard. Impossible is not a word. It's just a reason for someone not to try.
Love it.
Everyone scared to death when they decide to take that step out of the water. But it'll be all right. Life is so much more than what your eyes are seeing. You will find your way if you keep believing. I've seen dreams that move mountains, hope that doesn't ever end. Even when the sky is falling, I've seen miracles just happen. Silent prayers get answered. Broken hearts become brand new. That's what faith can do. Overcome the odds. You don't have a chance. That's what faith can do. When the world says you can't, I'll tell you that you can. I've seen dreams that move mountains, hope that doesn't ever end, even when the sky is falling. I've seen miracles just happen, silent prayers get answered, broken hearts become brand new. That's what faith can do. Even if you fall sometimes, you will have the strength to rise. And that leads us to the person who reminded us about the power of this song, who's here.
Absolutely. Yes, this is a Southern Baptist preacher who became an alcoholic and a misfit, but then turned everything around, obviously, if he's now a preacher. Preacher Morgan, would you come in and share with us a little bit? Welcome to our kitchen.
Hey.
Thank you.
It's nice to have you.
You too.
Come on, sit down. So you actually are an author today.
I am.
Congratulations.
I am. Thank you.
And
Thank
your
you.
book is Renegade Preacher.
Yes, ma'am.
From Rape to Recovery is the title, is the subtitle of that. So is that what led into the rape that you experienced? Is that what led you to becoming a misfit, as you say in your book?
Pretty much. Up until age 12, it was an awesome life. I grew up in a very middle-class America, Boston neighborhood, everything we ever wanted. At age 12, I was raped 52 times by a guy.
Wow.
And Mr. Nice Guy went out the window. Mm-hmm. And then I had to fight for survival. I had to fight for myself. And that sweet, innocent 12-year-old was gone.
I'm sure.
And what was the remnants was a misfit is just kind of putting it mildly.
You were angry, weren't you?
Oh, it goes beyond
sure,
anger.
yeah.
It was actual rage.
Yeah.
It literally went beyond. The school systems didn't know what to do with me, so the school systems threw me out.
And no one knew that this was happening to you.
No, but
Yeah.
it's funny. My mom can point to the day that everything changed.
Right.
She can point to the day and go, this day something changed. And at the time, I didn't say anything, but now I look back and go, well, why didn't you ask questions? Why didn't you
Try to find
why didn't
out,
you try
right?
and find out? Why did you just let it go? Why not? And so I turned to alcohol and drugs as my friend. Women, women, drugs, alcohol, everything the world said would make you happy.
Make you feel better.
And
That's gonna fix it,
All
right.
it did was mask it. All it did was put the rage was uncontrollable. I would pull police cars over. And-
You would pull over police cars.
Yes, ma'am.
How do you do that?
You get behind them and flash your lights and beep your horn and pull into the breakdown lane.
Okay.
And then they would pull in, and I would pull them out of the car and beat the living snot out of them and leave them on
Wow.
the side of the road. I just had rage that had to come out.
Sure.
It does somewhere.
It's going to. Yeah.
It's gonna, and you can't mask it forever. You can try and cover it with everything the world says will make you happy.
But it
You
doesn't
can.
work.
It doesn't. Eventually, it's. I never ever anticipated being on a TV show telling the world that I was raped.
Right.
It was a secret I was going to take to my grave that was going to be in a compartment that got shoved deep down inside. Because us guys are, hey, guys are meant to, we don't cry, we never let them see you sweat, never let them see your
Right.
weakness, never, if you show a weakness, that's where they're going to attack. And so you build these fences and walls up.
And we do it as girls too. We just don't have as good an excuse. We're not manning
okay.
up. We're just, getting cold and distant and doing whatever else to
Right.
distract.
Right.
But the fact is, we all want to hide it permanently because then it maybe never happened.
Right?
At least we don't have to keep unpacking it and thinking about it. But then, thank God our stories don't end there. They don't end with the I need to hide and I need to live in this rage that I'm feeling. How did God come into your story and start to change your heart?
Well, I drank from the age of 12 to 24. At 24, I was looking at serious jail time, and I said, okay, I got to get sober. I got to stop drinking. But I was so angry at God. I mean, that
right.
to me is a huge factor in my story was the church and church people would say, just trust God. And my thinking was, well, where was God when I was being held down and raped?
Yeah.
Where was God? Well, he was there watching. Really? And you want me to trust that God?
Right.
And so that became a real struggle, even in AA, of getting sober. So I went 10 years sober without God. I just
It's like
kind of
white knuckle. That's
white
a
knuckle,
long time to white
knuckle sobriety.
Yeah.
And finally, in a moment, 10 years in, my wife had written me a missing persons report. It was kind of a letter to me going, where's the man I married? Where's this person? Where is he? Because the anger and rage was still there. Because just because you get sober does not mean that the baggage is still with you.
Right, you're still broken.
You're still,
Right.
you've got to deal with it.
Right.
All your drinking and drugging does is mask it. And so when I got sober, I did it without God. And 10 years in, my wife was like, look, I'm done. And I said, so am I. I'm either going drinking or I'm putting a gun in my head and I'm blowing my brains out because I can't live this way.
Right.
And it was in that moment of brokenness of totally, well, I can't drink, I can't drug, and I can't kill myself. Let's try God. And it was in that moment that we ended up going to this, and we got blessed. We found an awesome church where one of the guys met me in the parking lot as I was sitting down, hiding, smoking a cigarette in between two cars.
Yeah.
And he comes out and looks at me and goes, what are you doing? I said, I'm smoking. And he goes, why are you hiding? I went, well, this is like church property. Ain't that like a bad sin?
Yeah.
And he goes, stand up and smoke like a man. I'm a Christian, but I'm not perfect. And it was cool because that was the first time I had been in church and accepted for who I was.
Instead of a facade or looking, it's all perfect already.
Absolutely.
So you went to a hospital instead of a country club church.
Yes.
So you were okay to be broken and needy and hurting.
Absolutely.
That makes all the difference in the world.
Yes. When you're accepted for where you're at and knowing we're not broken. And you've now taken this recovery that you were able to get. Now, you mentioned AA, but I know also that you have a history with Celebrate Recovery.
I do.
So where did that real recovery come in? Was that through AA first or through Celebrate Recovery?
I tried AA for a little bit, but I struggled with it's funny, at the God factor on the front end. But it took 10 years of walking before I got that. And so I love Celebrate Recovery now. I love the steps of Celebrate Recovery. I love how it teaches you that, yes, you've got to deal with the baggage just because you get right with God, just because, you accept him as your savior. Everything doesn't go away just because of that. You still have to process through, and you still got to walk through the avenue of forgiveness. You've got to, the hardest piece of my breaking the chains that had me chained up was literally forgiving the man who raped me.
Oh, yeah.
And that was huge. But once you break through that, everything else becomes so much easier.
It's doable instead of impossible.
Correct.
With God's help and actually starting that process of dealing with the original brokenness that kind of set you up for the anger and the rage and the pain and all the things that the addictions were an escape from, right?
Correct.
Right.
Yeah, so we all walk that on different levels.
Yeah.
But it's the same story.
The addictions being the symptom of what you actually had to get to the root of and get to absolutely deal with and forgive and let go, which I'm sure was not easy.
That's by far the hardest thing I've had to do in this lifetime.
Yeah.
Is forgive the guy who did that.
But you found freedom.
But it's his freedom in it. And you're not forgiving him for him.
You're forgiving
You're
him
forgiving
for you.
him for you.
Yes.
It's you know, he's still got to deal with God.
Right.
You
He's
know,
still accountable
I've
to
just
God,
let him
absolutely.
I've let him off my hook. I don't. I don't need to deal with it today.
No, and you're not condoning what he did. You're not saying it's okay. You're saying it's not okay, but you're no longer going to hold on to the anger and bitterness that goes with that. You're letting him off of your hook so that he is accountable to God directly without you having to suffer for it.
Correct.
Because otherwise, you're punishing yourself. That whole saying of it's drinking the poison and expecting somebody else to die. Like, that's what bitterness does to us. But forgiving, because it's hard, because it's got to be gut level to be real. And it takes time. It takes a process to do that. But with God's help, it's possible. And I know for me,
Praise
it was the
God.
freedom that came out of it. For you, it's the fact that you have a totally different life now. Your marriage, you still have a wife?
I do. I do. See,
I've met her. She's beautiful.
we have survived it. We have worked in ministry together for 20-something years now. Our life is now focused on helping other hurting people get their freedom. That was the whole purpose behind writing the book. Was there are so many hurting people out there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And hurting people hurt people. And there are so many people, as a pastor, I can see it this way, that even the church is not equipped in most cases to help hurting people that come in the door.
Right.
And I just thank God I happened to find the right one at the right time. That God has just kind of steered my life. And I never thought in a million years that I would be a Southern Baptist preacher. I mean, that
No, sitting in a jail cell, you didn't think you'd be a Southern Baptist preacher?
And I mean, that's a trip. But it's also, you've got to overcome, because most people look at churches and see the churches as hypocrites, and the people in the church as hypocrites, and that they need to know, as you said, we are a hospital for hurting people.
Exactly.
And that we do have the most absolute awesome surgeon in Jesus to fix our deepest hurts, the deepest wounds, the deepest everything we suffer.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Preacher Morgan, for being here. We are celebrating you today because you are our ex-victim of the week. We're so appreciative that you would come and share with us. So we have a gift package for you.
And this is where we pull your wife in, because we kind of doubt you're going to wear this necklace, but you never know. It's an ex-victim. The X with a little V for the victim, that's saying that you don't have to be a victim anymore. And your wife can wear it as a reminder to you and her.
To bloom
to
today.
bloom today.
A free PDF copy of the Bloom in the Dark book and a full list of Bloom Today's coaching tools can be found on bloomtodaytv.com. Then visit Bloom Today's Facebook group for deeper conversation.
Alpha, Omega.